difference between the two. I like to use the search pairings tab, add more search pairings, and now you can filter out. Here's some of my main properties that I like to use. I like pairing length. Say you're a 3-day, you're a commuter, and you want to see what 3 days there are. You're just going to add that to your search criteria. Some people might want to even be more specific. They may want a co-terminal and they want to see what's out of DC. You can add that. You can click on several properties and then add them all at one time. Okay. Another thing I like to see is I like easier trips or less landings in a day. You might want to do that. Max landings per duty. Let's just say we're going to seek out what there is for just one landing a day. Obviously, that is not a one-day trip because you have to have a 2 landings for that. So I'll just open that up and maximum, clear out that 3. Now here are the sequences or trips, as you may call it, that have 1 landing per day. There is 3 pages and 3 per page. We can quickly look and see what is there. Okay. All right. One of the issues that we tend to have in our DC base is using the co-terminal when bidding specific. When you are bidding specific, it knows everything about your trip. It does not know your position order. So let's just say I'm adding 23605 on the 7th to my bid. I'm putting it in layer 1. I'm adding it to the bid, right? Now you can see it on my calendar. When I go to my layers tab, that's all I should see. You do not want to add the property co-terminal DCA because what happens is it adds all of the sequences that go out of DC into your layer, which is probably what you're not intending to do. That is a common mistake. However, we also have allow co-terminal in a work block. What that particular property does is it allows you to work out of DC. Let's just say I'm doing back-to-back 1 days, or I'd like to. I'm going out of DC the first day, and I want to go out of Baltimore the next day. If I do not check the allow code terminal in a work block, it will not give me back-to-back sequences. It will force me to have a day off in between. Okay. Are there any questions at this point?
Yes, it's Jan. I have one.
Yeah.
So if you click on bid these properties by mistake, which is what I did, I was looking at 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
What have I done? Or how do I get rid of that?
How do you correct it?
Yes.
Did you add anything to your bid?
It didn't look like it. I was looking at the 3 days, and just out of curiosity, I clicked on bid these properties, and so I didn't know. I wasn't sure what I did by doing that. I don't want to get locked into 3 days.
Okay, no problem. Do you see on the screen right now my white box is on layer? Yes. If you click on the layer, if you actually added anything, you will see it right here.
Okay.
Okay. And if it's a mistake, I'll show you how to erase it. Where it says pairing ID on date, here's the X, it's gone.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's how you correct it. Any more questions?
I have a question quickly about that comment you made about the co-terminal mix if you're trying to pick up 2 1-days. So let's say at your seniority, you can hold the DC trip and you can hold the Baltimore trip. Which trip is it going to give you? And then which trip would it cancel out if you miss that property?
Okay, that property is actually to get both of those trips.
Right. And you're saying it'll award you one, but it won't award you the other. But what if you can actually hold them both? which one would it actually award?
If you didn't use it
Yeah,
and they're on the same layer,
yes.
they're equal. We don't know which one. It's random.
So the computer will just pick one and toss the other one out?
That's correct.
Okay.
This is John, real quick. I just wanted to make everybody aware that we are going to start to recording the session. That way we can go ahead and put it on our APFA website. I was a little slow at getting ready to hit the record button, but I just wanted to give you all heads up that we will be recording. Thanks.
Okay, so here's one. Here's a property that often we find in DC that gets used. Let's just say I'm adding a pairing to my pairing pool. I'm just going to say pairing length 2 days. Add search, and I'll just go with pairing 2868. A lot of people are running out of bids. If I see this 2868 and I would like to go for both of these dates, the 16th and the 22nd, you can click on the pairing ID. It is 1 click rather than each day, which is 2 clicks. So it will reduce the amount of bidding clicks so you don't max out, okay? Also, say I'm adding it to my pairing pool. I'm adding it to layer 1. All right, I'm going to my layers tab. There it is. And then, you know, some people think, well, you know what if it's on the max? And so maybe I need to get rid of that. I don't want anything that is on the max. Avoid aircraft. 737 max. I don't want that. Just in case they go to sign me and you add it to the bid. Let me show you what actually happens. I'm going to my layers tab. So I'm thinking, oh, it's just going to give me this trip. And in case it's on the 737 max, I don't want it. But watch what happens when I hit view pairing set. Not only did it add that one sequence, but it also added everything else that does not work on the max into my bid. And I'm like, oh, I didn't expect it to do that. So just so you know, that is a property that adds everything but the max into your layers. Again, when you're bidding specific, try to avoid any generic properties other than line properties and your position order. Any questions?
Liz, we did get a question from Tara. She said that she didn't know that we could max out our bids. What is the max?
I not sure. Beth, you have the number on that?
300 clicks.
300 clicks.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Is that through all 7 layers? Or
Yes, that's all through 7 layers.
okay.
It used to be 500. Sorry, I'm having a computer here. It used to be 500 and then they switched it to 3. I'm not sure why.
Is that does that include, like, let's say you put specific trips in your first couple, let's say you put 200 trips in your first 4 layers and then the rest of them are generic clicks in your lower layers. Is that included or are they just trip clicks?
It's every click.
Okay.
Every click for whatever click you do, it's included.
Okay.
So, and to max, and sometimes what people do is they do max out because they do specific and they do it in all layers and they do a lot. So then you can just go back and you can just delete some of those. Like let's say in layer 7, you can delete the specific and then just bid generic in layer 7. And then that would give you your clicks back.
Okay. And then just clicking on, you want all 1-day trips in your generic, that's just still considered 1 click?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I definitely didn't know that. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
And you could also use your days off on the calendar to, let me add it to the bid. Say I don't want to work Sundays. That's vacation, so I don't have to worry about it. So when I now add this Tampa turn, 7201, I'm okay with all these other days. I'm still going to use the pairing ID number to add it to my bid.
Liz and Beth, this is Di. Just to circle back to the max, if I may.
Sure.
They're going to increase the amount because I know we're a tri-base, but some of our larger bases like Dallas with almost 6,000 flight attendants. When did this change and why did they go the opposite direction? Does anyone have any insight? Or John?
I don't know why they changed. And I want to say it was changed, and I could be wrong on this, but I want to say is when we merged that it got changed.
Right.
But I'm not, like I said, I could be wrong on that.
John?
Another quick question about that. If you click on the pair, like the one you're on right now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like 13 trips there. If you click on the pairing ID, does that count as one click and then it adds all 13?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So that's a little trick to avoid that. Okay.
I avoided the weekends by putting the days off on the calendar.
Excuse me,
Oh,
Liz.
so
Alan,
those don't count as clicks.
hey, Alan, do you have something to add to all this?
Yeah, the max clicks was had to do with the runtime on PBS. It was more an impact for Dallas and Miami and some of the larger bases, just because there's a limited amount of time for the runs to be processed and the awards to be done. So they had to pull down on the number of clicks. In a base like DC, I don't know that I've ever seen maybe a bid or two that has maxed out on the clicks, just because it is a smaller base with a limited number of positions on each aircraft.
And Alan, you're correct. From when I was in Fabric, I've never seen DC. I never got a problem with DC. It was always the bigger bases that had that issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Thank you, Alan.
Sure.
So Tara, you were asking if by adding the days off, is that a click? Is that correct?
Yeah, if you were saying, I thought you were saying if you actually clicked it on the calendar itself instead of using it in the days off tab, that it was not counting toward the clicks.
Days off are not counting towards clicks.
Okay. All right, thank you.
It's if you did instead of 7201. Okay. Let me delete that. Let me delete this. Delete. Okay, that by putting the days off and hitting the pairing ID number, that's one click. However, if I try to avoid Sundays and do it this way, every time I click on that, you can see how the clicks are starting to add up. These are all clicks.
So by putting your days off, like say the 5th, and clicking the pairing ID, it just automatically didn't add the 5th and the 12th by putting your weekends in there.
Correct.
Okay.
I avoided the Sundays by clicking the days off.
Gotcha.
And then I went ahead and added just the pairing ID number.
Gotcha. That is actually really helpful information because I was going to be one of those people doing that for this trip because I didn't want to add specific and generic in the same line. So thank you for that information.
Yeah, that's valuable information, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Golly.
So
Jan, I have a question. Go ahead, Jan.
Yep.
Okay, so I bid specific, right? And I have 241 pairings. But when I look beneath the dashboard and where it says view pairing set, line 1 shows 241. And then lines 2, 3, 4, and 5 show 0. But on my layer calendar, it clearly shows that I chose trips.
did you go generic?
No, I didn't. I went specific.
Did you repeat the trips on a second layer?
No, I didn't.
So you're saying that added specific trips to layer 1, like we're seeing on my calendar right now?
Yes,
And you also added specific trips to layer 2?
I did. I added specific trips to like all the to all the layers.
Did you so I'm only wondering if you accidentally used add more properties and did it that way. You're saying that you actually see on this calendar to the left, pairings in the pairing pool on layer
Yeah.
2 that are not showing in your layers tab?
Yes. Now I wonder if that has something to do with earlier when I clicked on, when I was looking at 3 days and I clicked on bid these properties. Do you think maybe that had something to do with wiping those trips out? That's kind of weird.
Without actually seeing your screen, you're
Okay.
saying layer 1 has 241 pairings?
That's what it says where, you know, where it shows view pairing set and layer 1, it shows 241. But on the calendar, it doesn't show that.
Jan, does it show zeros for layer 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7?
It shows 0 for 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then layer 6 shows 4 and layer 7 shows 1.
Okay, there's something else in your bid.
Hey,
Okay.
and when you go into your calendar and you go where it says layer 1 and
Yeah.
that drop menu, when you click layer 2, does it show your specific trips there?
It does.
Okay, you might want to try logging out of it, clearing your cache, close everything else but that, and then log back in.
Okay.
Also, are you using Safari?
I'm using, no, I'm not. I'm using, what am I using? Chrome.
Chrome.
Okay.
Yeah, try clearing your cache. Sometimes that if you have a lot in the history, you need to just kind of clear it all out.
Okay.
And yeah, and then go back in and open it up again and see if it's the same issue is still there.
And so if you clear it out, then does it erase like the max entries that I've made too? I'm just starting fresh.
No,
So
it just clears out all the past like websites you visited and stuff like that.
Okay.
That's what that does. So it just
Oh,
clears
okay.
up. Yeah, sometimes when your computer's loaded with all this stuff, it messes up the PBS. So yeah, just try doing that. I know when we were in Fabric, we used to recommend that a lot, and it used to take care of the problem most of the time.
Okay. All righty.
Beth,
Thanks.
would you say that Google Chrome is the recommended browser here?
It is. Google
PBS?
Chrome is the recommended browser. Yes.
Thank you.
We would always find with using Safari, not always, but sometimes when we were down in Fabric and someone was using Safari and I was trying to follow them, I would not get their updates they were using on that browser. Did you find the same thing, Beth, when you were down in Fabric?
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah, Chrome is definitely better. And sometimes it's even the device. If they switch devices, one device works better than another for some reason. I'm sure you remember that too, Liz, that sometimes we would just recommend going to another device.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of the other things over history we're going to tell you about, but there's a big change up that might negate what I'm about to say. History has shown that in the month of December, it's like 2 mini months, and you would be held to no more than 35 hours at the beginning of the month and the other 35 hours at the end of the month. And the dates that I'm speaking of are the 1st to the 15th, any trip that departs on that time frame. And the other half is the 16th to the end of the month. In history, we would find that there were a lot of people forced to fly the other half of the month through that on a more junior basis because a lot of senior people would have vacation during the end of the month, giving them more time at the beginning of the month. However, with that being said, this 300% payout for working on critical days we feel is going to really change up this whole ball game, and we honestly do not know how this is going to pan out. But just to keep in mind, in case, I would protect myself by putting sequences in maybe on layer 7 that might give you trips after the 15th in case it gets to layer 7. You could always load up more trips on layers 1 through 6 and hope it never gets to layer 7. Any questions?
Liz, we did have a question from BF, one of our guests, and I noticed the hand went down, but if you'd like to ask your question, BF, please go ahead.
Oh, hey, everyone. John, thanks for doing this, and all of you. Liz M., one question about clicks while we were talking. Is there a way anywhere on the screen to see how many clicks you have accumulated?
I don't know of one. Beth?
No, unfortunately, there's not. They're just, yeah.
It will tell you. Yeah, it will let you know. There will be a pop-up box that tells you you've reached your clicks.
And just remember, just like Alan said, this is not really an issue for Washington, for smaller bases. This is really something that is seen in DFW, Miami, Charlotte. It's the bigger bases that have this. And again, because they have the international flying, so they have lots more positions to bid for. So it just, that's where it really comes into play. I honestly haven't seen it. I don't know, Liz, about you, but I don't remember anybody ever calling from DC saying that they ran out of clicks.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. And guys, just to touch base real quick on what Liz was saying about the half month, and what it is, it's because December is, the second half of December is the open time trip distribution, because the second half of the month in December is always a lot more trips than in the first half. So that's why they do that, or they treat it as half a month and half a month. It's because of all the trips in open time that are in the second half before PBS starts running. So that's just an explanation as to why they do that. But again, as Liz said, we don't know whether that's going to be a factor or not this year.
And just to piggyback on that, Beth, we were told in our allocation summary that the heavier flying would be the week before Christmas, and there would be a pull down of flying during the week of Christmas, which is really uncharacteristic. I really didn't wrap my head around why that was like that. That's what was reported to us from allocations. So you might keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, and that's good to know, because usually, the heavier is like after Christmas when they say everybody, heads out of town. So it's good to know, that the heavier is like the week before Christmas. That's what they're anticipating.
Okay.
And just to add to that too, and I know, John, we were both kind of scratching our head because it didn't, and then on the flip side, it seemed like Doug Price also mentioned that DC was somewhat of an exception. We weren't part of the majority of bases, right? Where the impact was not going to be quite as extreme.
Correct. Right.
But the third component to this, not just the reserve numbers, as Liz pointed out, the incentive pay, but also we have people that normally would hold vacation in December, but because of long leaves that are now back, they weren't able to bid, correct? So that will also impact even something like vacation low, which went went to 87 for November.
Very true. Very true. That's a great point, because I know people have talked to me about vacation low out on the line and hoping, and how do they do it? And you're right, it probably will impact the seniority of who gets vacation low in December.
And along those lines, and Beth and Liz, apologize for texting last night. The flight attendant was trying to get her bids in before her trip. But regarding vacation low, there was a misconception. And if anyone on the call, maybe, I don't know if this has come up, and thank you everyone again for joining. And that is vacation low, it's treated the same, whether you have 7 days or 17. It's just whether you qualify, where they draw the line in the sand of the cutoff, correct? It has no bearing if you have 28 hours of vacation, just 7 or more to qualify, but whether you have 7, 17, 20 hours, 20 days, it's no bearing, correct?
Correct.
Yes, okay.
It goes by seniority. It puts you in the pairing pool if you have 7 days or more. It puts you in the low pairing pool, and then it runs by seniority. However, you're not guaranteed that no matter what. If you happen to look at my screen, this is the bid summary for November. And DC, let me see if I can shrink it a little bit. If you see right here is DC, I'm going to enlarge it again because my old eyes can't see. My mouse is showing the row for DC, all right? Of the vacation low, 102 people qualified. 16 people got it. I believe, Di, you were one of them. So
I was the last one. That's me, 3722. So I was the
yeah.
very last.
So Di is the last person who got vacation low, and she's number 74 in our base. What's even more important, which can affect our bids again, and however, you know, having the 300% pay, everything that we're saying, we're really in the end are going to find out after it runs. But with Betty Nash, number 1, starting in November, had to fly at least 70 hours. And then down here, starting at seniority number in the base 344, they had to fly 78. Everybody below them also did. But if you're also looking to the left, here is the Charlotte bid for November. So they held for the first half of the month, people up to 38 hours, no more than 38 for the first half of the month. So they can have enough coverage at the end of the month. So even though you have vacation, does not guarantee you will get vacation low. That's totally up to the company.
And just remember, vacation low is when you're eligible for vacation low, it's 40 to 69 hours. If you bid over 69 hours, you're no longer eligible for vacation low. You might hold low on your own, but you're not eligible for vacation low once you go over that 69 hours.
Beth, when you say when you bid over 69, is that in your the hourly? I forget what it's called.
TCR.
The target range, the TCR. Yeah. So when you bid your TCR, if you go, the vacation load, depending on your seniority, is very iffy. So in order to qualify for vacation load, you have to stay between 40 and 69 hours in all 7 layers. If you go over 69 hours and bid to 70, you're no longer eligible for vacation low. As I said, you could hold it on your own maybe, but you're not considered eligible for vacation low. The problem is if your seniority does not hold vacation low, then you could be held for a higher, let's just say you only want to fly 75. Well, you might be held to a higher TCR if you just bid 7 layers of 40 to 69. So it's kind of iffy depending on your seniority.
Okay, I think Suzanne has had her hand up to ask some questions about what we're talking about right now. Go ahead, Suzanne.
This is before when either Beth or Liz said something about protecting yourself by adding layers, adding pairings in layer 7, just in case. I always hear that, and I know it sounds stupid, but if you could hold it off, you will get it off, right? Because I always say, don't give the computer anything, because a computer could turn on you and give that to you. But if you are able to hold off some days off, then it will never get to that layer 7, correct? The computer is logically like that. It doesn't. I know it sounds stupid, but
no,
the computer won't turn on you and say, "Oh, well, look, she wants this in layer 7. We'll just give it to her." because of something else. Because I'm always afraid to cover myself by doing that, but I do it sometimes. But I'm always tentative because it's like the computer will then say, "Oh, you wanted it, so I gave it to you." Can you address
Yes.
that irrational
Yes.
fear?
So what is happening generally is that you are not bidding enough. If you can't hold the day off and you don't give the computer options, that's where it starts to assign you. Or if you've done something that is a conflict. So just generally, it's going to read layers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you have enough pairings in your pairing pool and you can hold off those days, it's going to try to award you from that. Let's just say that you are not sure. And you go, I need to really back myself up with more pairings. And we're going to pretend that I've already bid layers 1 through 6, right? And I'm going, you know what? I need to protect myself. I know DC is a height, one days go like hotcakes. So I might go into my pairing pool and put pairing length of 1 and add that all to layer 7, okay? And you're going to go to my layers tab. It'll be in here if you view my pairing set. Oh, I guess I didn't add it. Bear with me here. I didn't put it in my layer 7. And that's why you always check your work under the layers tab. I actually did, but because my 2 through 6 on my particular screen is blank, it's picking up all these other trips, all the other trips in layer 2 right here, right now. But if I put something in each one of these layers, and then I protected myself with layer 7, let me see if I can export my standing bid. By the way, don't look at my standing bid. It's not a good bid. It's been sitting there forever and trips have changed. Okay? Just know that. You should always look at your standing bid once in a while. See how I've got zeros in here? That's because trips have changed, and what realistically I have bid is not a good bid anymore because so much has changed. Here's a good example, though, of me telling you about specific and generic. All my layer 1, because I just exported my standing bid into the current bid, you're going to not want layer 1 to have anything that is generic. Oh, I do want that one in it. I want it to be specific, not generic. Prefer position order can be in there. Right now, layer 2, I'm saying any 2-day out of Baltimore or DC, and I prefer position 2. I did repeat that same bid, Baltimore, DC. I didn't put any specific days, so it's Baltimore or DC with no more than 2 landings, and I don't have a position order down there. So that just opens it up. It's okay. That's why I don't have any zeros in layer 3. However, if we go look at layer 4, I just repeated what was in layer 3. So that's going to populate a 0 because it's already been picked up in my 3rd layer. Okay. So if you just change things up, let me do this. Let me add a position order here. What do I have? I don't. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to add another position order.
And Suzanne, while Liz is doing that, let me just explain that the system will never just go from layer 1 to layer 7, go, oh, well, she bid that in layer 7, so we're just going to give it to her off. It looks at your seniority and it goes layer by layer, just like Liz said. So if your seniority can hold that day off, even though in layer 7 you bid to work it, it's not going to make you work it. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
What your seniority can hold.
All right. And while I have you, so I just wanted to ask one more question as far as how many trips, is there a formula for how many trips you need to bid? Like, do you take your seniority number and multiply it by something, or how do you know when you have enough?
We used to tell people that in fabric in the beginning because that's what we were told to do, but they realized that that doesn't really work because it really depends on what kind of trips you bid. Because let's say you bid trips that nobody else wants. You bid 4 days on the weekends because that's what works for you. And you're really junior. You might hold your first choice because nobody else wants those. Now, you may be really senior or, you know, in your top seniority, but you bid all the trips that senior people want. You may not hold those. So it really, there isn't a really good number. And I know it's very hard to say it's your relative seniority because nobody knows from 1 month to the next what people are bidding. But yeah, there really isn't a formula to tell you how many pairings are enough. Just in layer 7, just, I mean, fill it.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much, Beth.
I'm going to show you that in just a minute. Yes, as Beth said, I know a particular person who gets their layer 1. They don't bid many trips at all because they're super realistic in what they do. They know they can hold this and it works for them time and time again. So, you know, as opposed to myself, I take layer 1 and I load it up with what I think in my mind are premium trips, ones that Betty Nash is going to take and most of the senior ladies are going to take, right? But I load it up. So I'm going to have probably excess of bids in my personal bid, because I want a shot at those trips. I don't think I'm going to get them, so I throw everything into layer 1, and I let the system try to give me some of those trips.
Okay, I think Alan has a comment to make. Alan, please.
Yeah, just wanted to add something to what Suzanne was talking about. And actually, this came from somebody who was interviewing to be an FOI specialist a long time ago, that I'm one of those bidders that I bid for my dream trips in layers 1 and 2 because I want to, you know, if I can hold it, great. I held a really great trip after the day after Thanksgiving because I put it in my layer 1. But this person that interviewed for a position actually had really good advice in that I look at my dashboard, I see the position that I have in Dallas. I'm about number 1400 in terms of line holder, and multiply that by 3. And it's something that I've you know, kind of advised people when I see that they don't bid enough positions, when their bid goes PN, which means that you did not bid enough trips. It's kind of served as a good rule of thumb. So Suzanne, if you're number, say 100 in the base, kind of like as you're looking at that layer tab, you know, reviewing your layer tab, if you're around 300 positions, that's maybe a good rule of thumb. And that person that actually gave this advice to the team that was interviewing her was Liz Martin. So I want to give her credit for that we've passed that on. It's been really good advice, no matter what base you're in, just looking at your relative seniority in your base.
Aw.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks,
I'll
Alan.
remember that.
Hey, Beth, since Alan touched on LN, could we talk about, or PN and LN, could we distinguish between the two so the flight attendants know exactly what that means when they get their results?
Sure. Okay, so when your award goes LN, that means you were awarded from layer none. And 99.9% of the time, that is because of your target credit range. So what happens is the system cannot honor your line constraints by layer 7. So you go LN. And then the default of 70 to 90 takes over. PBS can never award over 90 unless you bid that. As far as PN means pairing none. So what happens is the system goes layer by layer trying to award your pairings to match the target credit range that you have bid. So if you've bid 60 to 70, it's going to go through your layers and try to give you enough pairings to get you to 60 to 70. If it can do that by layer 5, fine, it's finished, it's done. But let's say it goes through all your layers and all these pairings you bid a lot of pairings, but guess what? They all went senior, because it's really hard to know, again, your relative seniority in your base, because it changes and people's idea of what they want to fly every month changes. So it goes through and it gets to layer 7 and you didn't hold. It can't stop. It can't finish your line at 70 hours. So then it goes up into the sky and just grabs pairings, and it throws it on your line to get you up to where it needs to get you. Unfortunately, anytime you go PN or CN, you can go LN. And so then you may end up with a higher award line than you had bid. CN is coverage needed. And once again, that is something that happens when the system starts running, because coverage needed is not really kind of known ahead of time, because sometimes there's coverage needed dates on dates that are very strange. It could be the 15th of October. The system doesn't recognize a holiday as opposed to a regular day. So it doesn't look and say, oh, today's Christmas, so we're going to need it. Just Christmas, the 25th of December is the same thing to the PBS system as the 15th of December. So it starts processing. And when it gets to a point where, okay, too many flight attendants have asked for this off, we have all these trips that still need to be covered, it says, okay, that's it. Nobody else can have this day off because all these trips need to be covered. So that's when CN comes in, coverage needed. It's just because too many flight attendants have bid the same day off, and there's all these trips that still need to be covered. So again, anytime you're CN or PN, you can be LN, and then you may end up with a line that is higher TCR than you had bid for. So be careful with your target credit range. And one other thing when we're talking about target credit range is not layer specific, okay? So if you bid 40 hours in layer 1 and you have 40 hours worth of pairings in layer 1 and it can't do that, it's going to go to layer 2. So in layer 2, let's say you have 40 to 50 and fill 40 to 50 hour pairings in layer 2. Well, it may give you those pairings from layer 1 and 2, but it's going to keep going until it can get you to a target credit range that fulfills your high and low. So in other words, let me explain this a different way. It's not layer specific. So in layer 1, you bid 40 to 50. In layer 2, you bid 40 to 60. In layer 3, you bid 40 to 70. Okay. And then in layer 6, you go, okay, I don't like the pairings in layer 6. So I'm going to go back down and I'm going to go 40 to 55. It's going to remember that 70. It's always going to remember that 70. So it's going to always remember the low number, and it's always going to remember the high number. Does that make sense to everyone? Does anyone have any questions about that?
So, Beth, our projected monthly line average is going to be 81 for December. Is there any tips for bidding the TCR if folks would like to bid, less than 81 hours? The majority of the people, that's the average, but how would they do that with their TCR?
Well, I recommend that you always cover the base average, just to be on the safe side, because you just don't know. Everybody can get held. As Liz said earlier, Betty Nash got held. Everybody can be held to a certain number. So if you go in layer 7, depending on your seniority, and just cover that base average. So if it's 81 and some change, cover yourself up to 85 in layer 7. You don't have to do that until layer 7. As long as it's in there to layer 7, the system will go through each layer trying to find and stop trying to find and complete your award. So if you can hold 70 and you have that bid in layer 5, it's going to go to layer 5 and stop. But let's just say you can't because of your seniority. It needs to take you all the way up to the base average. Then you're covered because you're in layers. It's in layer 7. That way you won't go LN, and you're not taking a chance of getting awarded 89.52, which happens a lot, and I see it a lot, when you actually only wanted 70 hours to begin with.
So Beth, if you're putting up to 85 in layer 7, you had said earlier that it was going to remember the high numbers. So how do we differentiate that if you're really just not looking for 81, but you're covering base average?
Because it remembers the high number when it gets to it. So if you put your high number in layer 1, so example, okay, so somebody is a high time flyer, okay, and they have their dream bids in layer 1 and 2. So they bid up to 100 hours in layer 1 and 2. Then in layer 5, they don't like the pairings that are left. They say, well, I can live with it, but I don't really like them that much. So I don't want to bid that high. I'm going to bid just up to 80 in layer 5. It's going to remember that 110 because that 110 was in layer 1 and 2. And that's what it processed. It processed layer 1 first, layer 2, layer 3. So if you keep the high number in layer 7, it's not going to remember that till it gets to layer 7, and it has to use it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, Beth, if you put enough pairings, it will give you up to the line average.
You make sure you have enough pairings in case it goes to layer 7. I'm not saying it's going to. It could stop anywhere in between there. But if it has to go to layer 7 to finish your line, and you have that 85 hours in there, make sure you have pairings in layer 7 that are going to take you to 85 hours.
Okay, so as long as you have enough pairings, the computer will try to take you to the average. The
line average. If your seniority warrants that.
Okay, so at what point will it give you more than the line average? If you I know if you don't have enough pairings, it will push you over, but what if you did have enough pairings? I mean, when it says line average, does it mean that like every line holder from the first one to the last one is supposed to get that average?
That's correct. And
the only time you don't get it is if you want more or you want less.
Right.
So the only time that you don't get it is if you don't bid enough pairings.
Okay, so what the line average is yes. If everybody bid the exact same thing, everybody would have to do 81 and some change. Well, we know everybody doesn't bid the exact same thing. Everybody doesn't want the exact same thing. So there's some people who want low, some people want high. So what the system does is it doesn't go for one. Just remember that. It's not like, okay, this person bid low, so this person can have high. But it does, as it's starting to process an award, it always looks globally also. It looks at your seniority, but it looks globally also. Okay, so it knows, okay, I have this many high, this many, I can award this person 70 hours at this seniority. But let's say you can't. At that seniority, it cannot give you because everybody below you all bid low. So it's like, okay, this person needs, I've come to the seniority now that they have to cover the line average. This seniority and everybody junior to them has to cover the line average. So then as long as you've got that covered in layer 7, you're fine. If you do not have it covered in layer 7, then you're going to go LN. And that's when you can get up to the 90.
Got it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Just to put a more simplified way of looking at from the get-go, I like to suggest that people think of your target credit range separate of your pairing pool, because what the system actually does at your seniority, it starts to look at your target credit range. It already knows what you have to fly. It knows where you're going to land, whether it's, Well, a minimum of 70. We knew that for anybody who didn't have vacation in November, everybody had to do a minimum of 70 because they assigned it starting with Betty Nash. So at this point, the system's going into your pairing pools and it's going to try to build your bid up to that 70 hours. And it's going to go to your layer 1 and it's going to look at all the trips you have in your layer 1. And if you've got 70 hours in your layer 1 and you can hold those trips, you're done. It's picked out of the pairing pool layer 1. So hopefully that kind of helps to understand if you separate the two thoughts out from the start. Okay. And then if you can't get from layer 1, it is, it'll hold on to what you can. It's cumulative. It will hold on what you can hold from layer 1, and then it goes to layer 2 and tries to add more trips to get you to the target credit range you are required to fly. Does that help?
And guys, just
Yes, it
remember,
does.
not everybody is held to 70. I mean, they are held, but some people, it gets to a seniority where they're held to more. So
Yes.
then it goes up to 78.
Yes, which
Okay.
I'll show you again. This is November's. And the caveat is we have no clue what to go off of because of this 300%. It may change the whole entire dynamics of bidding in December all again. So the best way to do is protect yourself by putting more pairings in your pairing pool, at least by layer 7, which, Suzanne, I did my bid. You can see right here that I did start to protect myself because what I said in layer 7 is I'll take 1 days out of Baltimore and DC. I know 1 day's go. And if I go look at my pairing pool, view pairing set, there are all the 1 days. So you're asking how you do it. That is how you do it. I just added all the 1 days out of Baltimore and DC, and then it's now in my pairing pool. Okay.
And also, Suzanne, I want to mention, not just for you, but for everyone. When you are building that pairing pool and you're going layer by layer by layer, just remember that you can't bid, and you bid your days off. So if you keep putting pairings on top of the same days in every layer, what's going to happen is the system can't award you any more pairings when it goes from layer to layer to layer. You've changed pairings, but you haven't changed the dates that they're on. So they're going to conflict with the ones it's already awarded you.
Mm-hmm.
So just remember that, because I see that a lot, where they go LN because they couldn't get awarded the trips because they conflicted with already awarded, with trips that were already awarded. Already awarded to them. So if you want to fly the 2nd and 3rd, and you put that on every layer, different trips, but every layer it's the 2nd and 3rd, it's going to get to a point where they can't give you anything because it's every trip's on the same day. So just remember to mix it all up, okay? Don't put everything, don't make sure everything doesn't always overlap, and give it some room so it can put things on different days. And maybe when you get to layer 7, maybe open up some of those days off. So if it has to go, like if you want every weekend off in layer 7, just open up maybe your Saturdays. That way it can put some trips there. Just December is a hard month and we don't know what's going to happen. So just kind of protect yourself, because you don't want the system. You want to be awarded the pairings that you bid. You don't want the system to put pairings that you have not bid on your schedule because you did not have enough pairings, or because you did not bid a target credit range that was appropriate for your seniority. Okay, so just something to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Okay.
Liz,
Yeah.
it's Di. Was there a strategy? I know they said to often bid in 5-hour increments, that in your TCR you put 69. Was there something you were thinking of that?
As Beth said, low bidding,
right?
a low credit range is 40 to 69. I'm just trying with my particular, what I just put in here is I'm just trying to stop the system at a certain point. The
Right.
wider my target credit range is, I may have, instead of doing 40 to 75, let's just say I did 40 to 69 and then 40 to 80. It's possible that I could have stopped it at 75 rather than 80. However, people might get hung up because you don't want too tight of a target credit range, especially when it comes to bidding 3 days and 4 days. I gave an example to someone just recently that she bids all 2 days worth 10 hours, and she put a target credit range of 70 to 75. So that's a 5-hour gap, correct?
Yes.
How can you get 10 hours into a 5-hour gap?
Right.
You can't. It's got to be a 10-hour gap.
And in one of the PBS trainings too, you both discussed the strategy, especially in a holiday month, of how you enter your days off to get a more satisfied result. Can you touch on that when you finish with TCR?
I just want to interrupt a little bit. This is John. We did have some other folks that have joined us, so we want to welcome them to the event today. If you would like to ask a question, if you're on Teams, there is a at the top of the screen, there is a little button that has a hand on it. You can raise your hand and then we'll call on you. If you've just dialed in and you do have a question, when there is a break in the conversation, if you just want to go ahead and speak, we'll be more than happy to yield the floor to you. But we'd like to welcome you. And also, we're at our halfway point right now, so let's get our questions ready and so that we can ask Liz and Beth. So once again, thank you for joining us. We've had a good turnout so far today. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth, can we point out, so I'm showing a target credit range and how I built it. However, we have found through the fabric days, this is not the only way to bid your target credit range. Can you touch on that a little bit more, and I will correct what you have to say. I'll put it in my screen.
Sure. So, I mean, you can bid a target credit range that you can put it on multiple layers. So let's say you really, you're a high time flyer. So you want 90 to 100 hours in layers 1, 2, and 3. So you put 90 to 100 in layers 1, 2, and 3. Now you change your pairings in 1, 2, and 3 because you don't know if you can get those hours. So, you know, you put certain pairings in layer 1, then you different layers and different pairings in layer 2 and different pairings in layer 3. So now, okay, so then you go to layer 4. And so now you say, okay, well, let's see. I may not be able to hold that because I'm not that senior, so I may not be able to hold all those hours. And so let me go down a little bit and give the computer some wiggle room. So now I'm going to bid. Let's see. I'm gonna bid. What did I? Well, I can't see your screen. What did I say? 90 to 80, Liz?
90 to 100.
90 to 100. Okay, so now I'm going to go 80 to 100 because I want to go down because maybe the computer can stop at 80. Just in case I can't hold 100. So I'm going to put that in layer 4 and 5 because I still want pretty much high time. Okay. So now, but again, okay, my seniority, I don't know if I can even hold that much because I don't know what everybody's doing. So now I'm going to do 70 to 100. And I'm going to put that in layer 6 and 7. So you can do it that way. You don't have to put, it doesn't have to be stair-stepped, 5 hours or 10 hours. You can put multiple, in multiple layers, a certain target credit range. Now, 40 to 69 is considered low and 91 to 110 is considered high. Okay, so when the system sees a 91 to 110, it knows you want high. And some people bid that in all 7 layers. But you have to be able to be senior enough to hold that and to hold all the pairings to get you up to that much. But you can do that as well. That's another option. So there's multiple ways of bidding target credit ranges. You know, you could bid 100 80 to 100 in layers 1 through 6, and then 70 to 100 in layer 7. Or you could bid 50 to 60 in layers 1 through 6, and then 50 to 70 in layer 7. Just remember to cover yourself in layer 7. That's what's important. The others, as Liz said, 5-hour increments are not really, I don't recommend 5-hour increments. I recommend 10 hours because the system has to have room to work and has to be able to put pairings in there. So I do recommend 10-hour increments, but that's up to you because you can do 5. So there's a number of ways to bid target credit range. Just again, we can't emphasize that enough. Cover yourself in layer 7.
So Tara, you have your hand raised. Do you still have a question, or was that from before?
Actually, I have a couple of questions because I've just been listening to everything and thinking about things as you touched on. Diane was getting ready to ask something about how you can maximize a day off. So that's something I would like some clarification on. But most of what I was going to ask was back when we were talking about splitting the month into 2. And now that you're talking about being held to these monthly minimums, let's say first, the screen that Liz showed us even showed that in Charlotte, they didn't exactly split the month into 35 and 35. In Charlotte, they split it like at 38. So my question about them splitting the month is, let's say they don't split it evenly, or you're one of those people that's held to 78 or now even 80. They give you 35 hours in the half of the month. And so now you're actually talking about someone junior putting almost 50 hours in 2 weeks. How do they make that work and still work within the parameters of you needing a day off? And what if you don't waive the 30 and 7 and the minimum rest in those layers, is so that they can't force all that on there? What ends up happening with a situation like that? I know this is really loaded stuff here, but just listening to all of the things that you guys were talking about, just curious how that works. Because of course, I'm just like everyone else. I got little kids. I'd love to have Christmas off. So talking about working as much as as much as the system's going to force you in, with still trying to get that day, God willing, I can actually get it, and then maximizing any days off. Sorry if that's a lot right there.
No, I think I understand what you're trying to say. If you're held at 81 at the minimum, and we're doing a half-month logic, so you're
Right.
putting 35 hours in the first 15 days, your second half of the month is going to be loaded. And you're saying, how does the system do that with following the FARs and the contractual language? And I can tell you that I have seen schedules where flight attendants might just have 1 day off in that whole second half of the month. And I think Beth and Liz can attest to that. Alan, Diane, everybody can. So it really goes on your seniority and what you are needed to hold. But like we said earlier, we don't really know what's going to happen here this month because the incentives are so great. And senior people that normally say, I'm going to get my time in before the 24th and enjoy the rest of the month off, their thinking could be different. And that could really have an effect on somebody like you, Tara, where you're sitting on the food chain, right? Where you possibly would not have to have that much time crammed in the second half.
Okay.
But I really do understand what you're saying. Beth, Liz, is there something else you can add to that?
Yeah, and no, I understand what she's saying too, and you're absolutely correct, John, the way you're in your answer. The only thing I would say, depending on your seniority, Tara, is just maybe in layer 7 to cover yourself, like just in case. And as John said, we have no idea because who knows what's going to happen with this 300%. It's all everybody's talking about. So and I've heard some people said they're going to fly as much as they can and then they'll take January off. So it may be that nobody's going to be held to anything and everybody's going to get what they want. But if you just want to cover yourself, since you said you had kids, what you could do is something like maybe like the Phoenix trips that comes home at 7 o'clock in the morning. Maybe bid something like that that comes home at 7 in the morning on Christmas Day. That way you know you're off. So just, and you can put that in layer 7 or something like that to back yourself up. Even one of those really early turns, like 11:30, you know, bid those release your home really early. But don't do that till layer 7, because once again, you just don't know. And so you don't want to bid something you have to. So just bid your dream trip in your top layers, and then just make sure in layer 7 you got yourself covered. That's, and I know that's hard to say because no one knows what's going to happen, but hopefully it'll all pan out. Nobody will have to fly anything they don't want to.
Just like I said before, Tara, when we spoke of this, when you bid a sequence that arrives at 11:55 but releases at 12:10 the next day, it's covering both those days. The system sees that you worked 2 days, not a 1 day.
Yeah, I trust me, I look for all of those trips, and there's nothing that actually touches Christmas Day like that. There's not even anything that actually touches Christmas Eve. The only thing I found was the one that there's a 1 day that goes out late Christmas Day that actually touches the 26th. And when I was talking, I was off last year, but my bid back in 2019 is I actually saved it, was pretty close to what it is now. And I was forced into coverage needed on the 25th and 26th that year.
Right.
And so I know we had kind of touched on, you know, the days off. I did actually start thinking about that. Because Liz and I talked, if I just really want the 25th off and I force it into every layer, won't the system just force me a trip? But if I do put the 25th off in all 7 layers and I need that coverage needed date, does that force me into like an LN at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
The date does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Coverage needed date is kind of like it takes precedence over everything else. So
gotcha.
Now the other thing you could do is fly, if you could fly. I mean, and I don't know your situation, but fly the 6 days before, and then you have to have that day off because you can't fly 7 days.
Oh, that's a good thought. That's a really good thought. Now, will the system, if I can hold all of those trips, but it gets to my seniority and sees I need a coverage needed date, will the system kick out a trip that I would have normally held in order to do the coverage needed instead?
Yeah, well, it could. But
Okay.
if you can hold those dates and it awards you those dates, and then it gets to the coverage needed. Yeah, because it could, because again, coverage needed date it kind of takes precedence over everything else. But that is a good strategy to use.
Yeah, that is yes. Thanks you for that tip, because I will be looking at that in some of my later layers. For sure.
But again, Tara, we are really in the dark about this.
I know.
What you had as coverage needed dates at your seniority, it could totally flip flop. At this, with the 300%, your coverage needed dates at your seniority could be all at the beginning of the month for all we know.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we just
find that coverage needed dates are still at the end of the month. There might not be any coverage needed dates. There might be more forced coverage needed dates at the beginning of the month because all the people above you said, hey, look, I'm going to cover the end of the month. I want that money.
Interesting.
So do not know where your coverage needed dates will be until the system runs.
Okay, that's definitely all food for thought. Okay, thank you very much for that. You just gave me a whole bunch of stuff to think about.
Thanks, Chair. Great questions.
Absolutely.
So I know we have some folks that have joined us that will probably be setting reserve in the months of December. Is there anything that we can review for these folks about bidding, days off, and just bidding in general?
Absolutely. So I just recently had this very thing with a reserve, and I assisted the reserve on building a legal pattern. And I can't quite use mine, but I'll do the best that I can. Actually, do you all see that I'm on layer 7? Oh, it says, no. Oh, kick me out. Bear with me. Let me get myself back in there. All right, let's see if it'll do it. All right. This is the pattern. Oh, you know what I want to do? I don't want that. So give me 1 second. I want to show you why I am choosing layer 7. I'm choosing layer 7 because I'm building the bid to make sure it is a legal pattern. And then I am going to break it up. 24. Let me see if this will allow it. Yeah, okay. So it's not going to allow me to finish out this bid. I'll just tell you what the rest of it was. They asked for the 25th off, the 30th, and the 31st. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That would be 12 days. So I helped her build this bid, and I said to her, for the month of December, I do not recommend you put all 12 days off in layer 1. Reason being is they're all equal. And she could probably hold at her seniority the 24th and the 25th off. If I put 24 and 25 onto layer 1, the system can actually split that. And in the past, I could probably safely say that it's because of all the coverage needed days forced upon the more junior people that are reserves. They may end up with 10 coverage needed days, even 11 from the 20th to the 31st. That is not, they can't legally fly all that. So what would happen is the system could come up to her layer 1, actually remove the 24th or possibly the 25th, give it to the junior person, makes the junior person legal, and it thinks that she's happy. So the book recommends that if it's a day that you must have off and you want it really number 1 choice, you might want to put the 25th on layer 1 and the 24th on layer 2. This particular person really needed off the 9th through the 12th. So the recommendation for them was to put the 9th and the 11th on layer 1, which could split. I wouldn't think it would split based on the numbers we have, that 67 people in the lower right-hand corner is needed. So it most likely will force the 10th as well. But she could also put the 10th and the 12th on layer 2. And that's how you want to build your bid. Of course, again, you would remove what we put in layer 7 and put the last few days that you're asking for off in layer 7. Common mistake for many people is they do not click on this reserve tab. If you haven't clicked on the reserve tab and you're not seeing these numbers in the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to have an LN bid. It's not going to recognize any of your days off. It's going to just assign you what it needs to. Any questions?
Thank you, Liz.
Welcome.
So, go ahead, Alan.
I really can't reiterate enough what Liz just said about bidding under the reserve tab for your reserve days off. I'm part of the Miss Award team that we answer a lot of the questions coming from the flight attendants, and probably 90% of all the questions on reserve days off is that they did not bid for the reserve days off under the correct tab. They bid for it under the days off tab. So if you're a reserve bidding for your days off and you don't see these little numbers on those are the people that are needed for each day, you're bidding under the wrong tab.
Thank you, Alan. That's great. I think we've had folks do that before and really get a messed up schedule, right? Yeah.
And again, it is not recommended to put all 12 days off on layer 1. It's cumulative. It will hold what it can from that bid, and it will continue on to layer 2. And you don't know what's going to happen from there. It's best to create the bid and then break up that particular bid with just a couple of days off on layer 1. If you're really senior and you want 24 and 25, I would recommend put them on separate layers, because it will look at the system and say, I either want it, I can hold it, or I can't hold it. And then it'll go on to the 25th and it'll do the same thing, and it'll go down that way.
Liz, could you touch base on, we spoke about this on several other of these events for reserves, the new process that we're attempting to, we signed a letter of agreement to go ahead and do a trial run with this, and I think Alan maybe can speak to it as well, where the flight attendant can be on duty less than 3 available days at the end of the month carrying over. Is there any information we can give to the flight attendants?
I would like if Alan can speak to that, because I've been out of fabric for a while, and I just remember that coming into play. I don't know if it goes reserve to reserve, or does it go reserve to line holder. Alan, can you assist me on that?
It can be both. It's what it's looking at is, because previously you had to have 3 days on at the end of the month, and what we saw was a number of people that would have you could have a CN day on, say, the 30th, and you were looking for the 31st off, and it was causing people to be on when they did not want to be on. And this is really the biggest problem that we saw was from December to January, because you have two major holidays within a 7-day period, and obviously you have the FARs that were involved. And if you had reserves that were going from reserve to reserve. So it can be reserve to line holder or line holder to reserve, but it's proven to be something that's positive about allowing just either a singular day or 2 here or there, as opposed to the 3. And like John was talking about, this is a trial period. So we're kind of collecting feedback and data. Most of the feedback that we've gotten from the flight attendants has been very, very positive, that they like this, as opposed to what has happened in the past, which was you wanted December 31st off, but you had a CN day on the 29th or 30th. Well, it just kind of threw everything out.
So can you explain a little more as the pattern that I have on here? Could someone just bid to have the 31st off?
They could. I think that they would have to have the 31st and the 3rd off. They could bid to have it as a singular day on. Was the biggest, but you still need to have the 2-day off pattern that follows throughout the month. So I think in your example here, if I'm looking at this correctly, they would want to bid for the 30th and the 31st off in order to, and those would be golden days because they're at the end of the month. So that it would be part of a legal pattern.
Can they bid for the 29th and 30th off and just have a single day on the 31st?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Alan. Great information.
Yes, thank you so much for that.
Yeah. So I might have not caught this. I think I was multitasking, but Liz, you did speak about trips that touch midnight and how they populate those within PBS and what they're looking for the duty periods opposed to the calendar days. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. So you did touch base on that. Thank you.
And I just want to update you on with what Ryan had asked last month. And I was playing around with the system, and he was trying to avoid 1 days that carried over into the second day. And I played around with preferred pairing length of 2, and that seemed to fix what he was looking for. Remember, we were he did not want the Dallas trips that came in after midnight. So I recommend preferred duty period of 2 to him to look at it that way. So you could look at
Liz?
it, yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. That was on my list as well. And another question I had, in fact, you've got it populated, so this is perfect timing. The waive for the carryover. So a flight attendant asked because it's guaranteed, but I think the confusion is that the legalities, the month-to-month transition aren't waived, just the pay credit. Correct?
Correct. It does not waive your legalities.
So it allows you to bid and waive any time, but then it repopulates once the award is processed. Am I phrasing that correctly?
I'm not understanding what you're asking.
So you're telling it if you have time credited from the prior, we'll say November, you choose not to use it. But that obviously for the pay, it'll come back in. It populates after the run. It's only to show the computer that right now you don't want those hours in December.
No, it's all about carryover trip.
Yes.
It's about the carryover trip time.
Correct.
You want it to go above.
I think I know what you're saying, Di. Yeah, so it's just for PBS purposes. Once you get your award, that time will be in there.
Exactly. That's
yes,
that's
right.
Question the flight attendant said. If it's taken out, when is it repopulated? Or it's, I'll say taken out, maybe it's not the right term, but I think this addresses what she's looking for.
It's just not used in the TCR when it looks to give you your schedule.
Exactly. Yeah, it's for PBS purposes. Yes. So you're right, Di. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for clarification on that. Appreciate it.
And then just one thing too on the reserve. Liz, if you'll go back into the reserve, you're still in there. Up at the top, there's a waiver about carryover credit if you want it to be days off. I know there's some confusion about that. Sometimes people click that and then they don't realize that because that was a day off that they made it. You have to have the other day next to it off too, because you have to have 2 days off in a row, at least. So just remember, if you're going to make that a day off, there has to be at least 2 to 8 days off. So because people go, well, I didn't want the second to be off. I just wanted the first. So just remember that when you're clicking that that waiver in the reserve tab.
That's very good information.
Yeah, if this trip that it's showing 24127 actually carried over into the second, just say that's a 3-day trip, and I hit the waive to allow carry over to be days off. And this is why, Di, I was a little confused, because it would give you this day off, but it also will force you to have the third off as well. And that's what I thought you were going for. But yes, if you waive your carryover trip to be days off, and it was only carrying over to the second, it will also force the third to go with that. Okay. And here's something I want to mention to everybody. Legalities trump seniority. So when the system looks back 6 days into November and someone's very junior, but they flew 5 out of these 6 days, it's going to force them to be off on the second and the third. So that can affect a lot of people's patterns in the first week or so. So you got to keep that in mind. The system looks back 6 days into November because legalities trump seniority.
So if we're going line holder to reserve and we decide to bring that additional time from month to month carryover into our reserve line, if we use that waiver, the system is automatically placing days in the contractual patterns there to make that a pay no credit. Is that correct? That's what we're doing here with that carryover time, right? And those days would come from our 12 allotted days off.
That's correct, John. And people don't understand that one too. Yeah,
right.
That is your 12 allotted days off. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that really, when you do that, you can really have limited patterns throughout the month. It's a good feature. I know Alan can speak to it. We fought for that. We really wanted the flight attendant to be able to have that as a pay no credit, but it really affects your patterns throughout the rest of the month.
That's correct.
Okay. Anything else on reserve before we move on? Anybody have a question? We've got a whole bunch of people on here. Raise your hand or just go ahead and speak out. This is your time to ask your questions.
This is Tara again. I have my hand raised, but if anybody has anything about reserve, I wanted to give you the chance to finish covering that first, since you were on it. But if nobody has any questions, I wanted to know if there was a way in the system if you could find filter trips that pay more and work less. Say it pays 10, works 8. Because I don't quite understand some of those credit ratio ones, so I wasn't sure if that was what I was actually looking for. I had another question, but I forgot that now, but I know that was one on my top of my list.
Okay, so down, I switched into the pairing tabs, and here is maximum average credit per duty.
Okay.
You can use those properties.
How do you use those properties?
So you would just click on it. Bear with me and let me get my eyes. So if I'm doing 1-day trips, I want at least a credit of 8 hours. You could put that in there.
Okay.
And it'll search for those trips.
Okay.
So I did that a lot when we had the LA turns. You know, I just wanted to filter those out. You could do it that way.
Okay. So you're talking about a 1 day that pays more than 5. I was talking more like a 2 or 3 day that works less than the average. So say a 3 day that pays 15, but maybe works 12.
So you're looking for the soft time, Tara. Is that what you're looking at? And your question? Yeah. Go ahead, Liz.
Again, yeah, the time away from base credit ratio is something you would look into. That's not used that often. And I do believe if I don't, in the book, and I don't have it open right now, it suggests that you not use that just as a search purpose.
Okay.
I'd have to pull up the book to find that out. And by the way, everybody, I will go ahead and do something real quick. Let's see if I can get down in here. You can find your book at, go to departments. I'm just doing it the way I always do it. There's several ways to get to things. Here's crew change.
Yeah, I'm
click on that.
now. Okay.
There's preferential biddings, and here's your full PBS guide right there.
Okay.
And it will break it down for you within here. I without finding it in the book right now, I do believe in the back of my mind, it does talk about that property as better used as a search property rather than a bid property.
Right. And I was looking to just search through some of that stuff so I could actually see what was available. I wasn't sure how to do that, but I'll go back to the guide and just look that up. That's no problem.
Okay.
And we did put out a base brief about a week ago for our allocations, and we did put a link to the PBS manual on that. So if you have that email with that hotline or that base brief, you can go right to the PBS manual by clicking that link that is on there. So we have about 20 minutes left. Liz and Beth, could you touch base on the miss award process? So that flight attendants can know what the timeline is and, you know, how they can achieve filing a miss award.
Sure. So if you feel that your award is not correct, well, first of all, when you get your award, if you would click on the reason report under award, it will take you, and you can, in the down menu, you can click layer by layer, you will see the reasons why you weren't awarded different properties. It could be awarded to seniors. It could be conflicted with pairings already awarded. It could be 7 and 30 violation. It could be not enough rest. There's numerous reasons why, but it will explain to you why you have not been awarded those pairings. And it will also explain, it will show you the pairings you have been awarded. So if there's something that's not right, that you don't feel is right, and you want to challenge it, if you go into Crew Portal, and if you click under links, excuse me, if you click under links, and then there's a support tab, Liz, do you want to?
You want me to do it?
Yeah, go into Crew Portal.
Okay.
Thanks, Liz.
No problem. Here's your support tab.
Yep, there you go. Okay, so that's the form that pops up. So then if you click right there where Liz is at, you can see where it has all the different, has PBS, vacations, ETB. So you click on whichever it's appropriate. So in our case, it would be PBS. You would click on PBS. And then you go to the next one, and then it would be, it's an award question, because some people, they're not sure if they have a miss award or not. They're just questioning it. Or you could do award challenge because you feel like, yes, I should have gotten this. So it's a challenge. So, and then you go right in there and there's summary, and you put in your comments. Junior flight attendant held sequence such and such on such and such a date, should have been awarded to me. And then you would hit the submit button. That takes it to, this is the company's Miss Award team. And this, that takes it to one of the Miss Award team members, and they look at it, and they look at your award, and they go through it, and they try to find out what was going on. So then they will send you back either an explanation as to why that trip was awarded to somebody junior. And you can go back to the same spot, go back to Crew Portal, go back to and that's where you'll see the answer. Now, or you can get that it can come up that it's been escalated up so that the PBS admins can look at it. So once the PBS admins can look at it, they either determine what's happened, and then you get a message from them telling you what's happened, or they escalate it up to the vendor, AOS. But this is where you always go back to see the response. Now, if you do have a miss award, it will tell you, once again, you go back here and it will tell you that you have a miss award, but a letter is being sent to you at your AA email. It tells you the process you have to go through. Now, if you want it sent to your personal email, you can respond and then just type in your personal email and tell them to send it to the letter to your personal email, and then they'll do that.
And Liz, did you mention that? I'm not Liz. I'm sorry. I apologize, Beth. Did you mention the last day that they can go ahead and file for these?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So Miss Awards open on the 18th. It starts at 12 Central Time, so noon Central Time, and it closes on the 24th at noon Central Time.
So Alan, if you're still on the call, at what point do people contact you, and for what reason do they contact the union for Miss Awards?
They can contact us at any time and fill out the Miss Award form on the APFA website. However, what we will say is that we'll go in and look at your issue, but the first thing that we will say is you have to fill out the support tab under your links in Crew Portal, because we may find that it's a miss award, but unless you contact the company, and this is actually in the contract that you have to contact, the company. It used to be the Fabric, now it's with this support tab. If you don't do that, nothing else is going to happen. And we go in and monitor the response as well to see what the PBS admins are saying. And we will also do a review of it. But like Beth was talking about, the very first thing is you have to fill out that support tab, and then you can send it to us via the Miss Award form on the apfa.org website, and our team will look into it and get back to you with our review as well.
Oh, great. That sounds great, Alan. Thank you for that explanation. Perfect.
Oh, and one more thing, John, while we're talking about that, when you send in your summary of what you think the problem is, be sure to be specific. Don't just say, okay, I could have held all these pairings and people junior to me held them, because the Miss Award team doesn't know what pairings you're talking about. And we get thousands of people sending stuff in saying, okay, I think it's a Miss Awards. I think so. If you can make it as specific as possible, that way that would preclude us, or I'm sorry, the Miss Award team sending back a message saying, okay, so what pairings are you specifically referring to? Because most people in 7 layers have thousands of pairings. So if you can make it as specific as possible, that would be great.
Beth, that's really good advice for both the company and APFA when you're reaching out, because we do get a lot of submissions that say, I believe I have a Miss Award. Well, again, is it a position Miss Award? Is it a trip? What layer? Is it about your TCR? It could be, we're kind of looking into a haystack trying to find that needle. So the more specific you can be in both to the support tab and to the APFA Miss Award team, the quicker we can get you a response back about your situation.
And for everybody who is coming back and go, oh, what are they talking about? A lot of times, well, how do I know this information? Again, when your PBS bid comes out, you'll click on award, and this view reason report, you'll click on that, and you can open that up and you can start seeing for yourself. Did I get it because it went senior to me? Did I not get it because it was a conflict? So you can actually answer a lot of your own questions by going to this view reason report after the award has been put out. That way, it gives you a better understanding. It also gives you understanding, are you bidding enough? It gives you more information to create a baseline for your future bids.
So Beth, since you're doing the Miss Award process most months, are you seeing a trend in actual Miss Awards, or possibly even the way the DCA flight attendants are bidding that could possibly get them a Miss Award or appear to be a Miss Award at that point?
So are you asking, John, what happens if are you referring to just sending in saying they have a Miss Award, or actually do have a Miss Award?
Yeah, I guess 2 parts. Are we seeing a lot of Miss Awards? I guess we can start there in DC when you're working that particular week for the company.
No, we are not. We're most of the time, I have to say 99% of the time, system-wide, it's bid. It's the way the flight attendant is bidding. It's not a Miss Award. There are times though that you will have a Miss Award. So things to look for. I mean, if you're looking at your reason report and let's just say it says not enough rest, and you bid waive minimum domicile rest, well, okay, there you go. Well, you probably have a Miss Award because it should have given you that trip because you waived it, and now it's saying that's the reason you didn't get it. So there are times when, yes, there are actual Miss Awards, but for the most part, I would say no. It's just flight attendants either not bidding enough pairings, or their target credit ranges are off. We had, when we were held to the 70 and the 78 hours, a lot of people bid 40 to 50, 40 to 60. So, they went LN. And so a lot of people wrote in going, okay, how come I got 82 hours when I only bid up to 70? Well, that's because you were held to 78. So it's a lot of it is things like that. It's very rare. It does happen. I see Miss Awards usually with speakers, buddy bids, things like that. But I mean, like I said, it does happen every once in a while, but for DC, it's very rare.
Thank you. I think we probably need to visit the standing bid language a little bit here. Some people enjoy just putting in a standing bid and letting it work for them. And as Liz had pointed out earlier, that each month the allocations do change. And at that point, you will need to go in and tweak, if you will, your standing bid. Liz, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I sure will. First and foremost, folks, if you do anything on this line holder calendar, such as add a single day off like I just did, it will not go over to your standing bid. The system will not look at your standing bid. So it's very important that if you choose to put specific days off on the calendar, that you come down here and you export your bid to the current bid, and you will know it by clicking on layer, and you will look, and now my standing bid is in my current bid, and I have a day off with it. As the allocations do change, my standing bid's old, and I was just putzing with it for visualization of adding trips. You'll see right now, I have a 0 in several layers. You might want to correct that. It could be that I just repeated sequences or choices or properties. I repeated them with no change. It will pick it up on the first layer and it'll create a 0 in a second layer. Doesn't mean it's wrong, but you're just wasting layers. I recommend that you might want to export it all the time, but it's there in case you don't bid at all. The standing bid is best in many ways, but it really covers you if you forget to even get into the system, or you know, you totally forget to bid or miss the bidding date. Several people, actually, senior people that I've spoken with over the years, they use their standing bid consistently. They just export it and mark their days off. So basically, just check it. You really ought to check it in case the allocations have changed. Many senior people from years in the past, before COVID, were doing a lot of IPDs, international premium destinations, which we do not have in DC, that were no good during COVID because those destinations were not open to us for flights. So they had a lot of zeros in their standing bid, and they would not have known that if they did not export it to a current bid. So if I'm in my standing bid right now, I'm taking my mouse and here is export. Okay. However, there's also, if you have a good bid that you like, you might want to bring it into your standing bid, and that's where you would import it to your standing bid. My recommendation is you clear out your standing bid before you import anything into the bid.
So under the layers tab, what should they look for when if they're exporting a bid that they think is a good bid, but there's a possibility that flying has changed?
Sure.
What should they look for in their layers?
Right here.
Right.
I just did it. I exported my standing bid. I'm looking at it. My pairings by layers. You can see layer 4. I have a 0 in there. Layer 6 and 7 are zeros. So I might want to go back into my bid and ask myself, what is it in my bid that's populating zeros? Did I repeat something? And it is, I see right now on layers 5 and 6, if you go vertically down, you could read that I have 2 days, Baltimore, DC. Okay, that's fine. Well, look what happened in layer 6. I still have 2 days, Baltimore, DC, no changes. So all of that I put in is being picked up in layer 5, creating a 0 in layer 6 because nothing changed. I changed nothing about it. Okay. So you want to watch for these zeros up here in the view pairing set.
So Liz, since we do have a co-terminal and there are times flight attendants are getting sequences out of the terminals that they're not interested in going to, how can they prevent that, or what are people doing that causes a mix of the co-terminal flying?
Maybe their seniority could not even hold what they're asking for. I bid specifically here, co-terminal Baltimore and co-terminal DC. I did not bid Dulles. I prefer not to drive there. So that is a way you could put into your standing bid, Baltimore or DC. You may, if you're more junior, you may want to open it up and not do just 1 days and 2 days. You've got the availability of doing 3 days and 4 days and just putting that on your lower layers, layer 7. That's something you could do as well. Many times I think when I'm finding that people are getting assigned at different terminals, it could have they mixed a specific with generic. And you know, unless we see their bid, we can't tell exactly what the error is.
Okay.
One thing I want to add, John, just because this is something I have seen, is people will think they've gotten a miss award because they'll say, well, okay, I didn't get the position order that I wanted. So what they did was they went in and they put in a current bid in, let's say, layers 1 through 4, and they did specific. They are under the misconception that then PBS goes into their standing bid and takes the rest of the layers and processes the rest of the layers and their position order from their standing bid. PBS will not look at your standing bid if anything is in your layer tab, your current bid, as Liz said. So I have seen that a lot. I don't know where that has come from, but people have gotten the idea that they don't have to bid all 7 layers because it's going to go into their standing bid and take the rest of it. And that's not the way it's going to do it. So just make sure you're either exporting and you have nothing in your current bid, or you're just going to use your standing bid and there's just your current bid is blank. No days off, nothing, just like Liz said. And Liz, also, did you go over the difference with the export and import?
I did.
Okay, thank you, hon.
Yep.
Okay, so I think Tara's hand is up. Is that left over from before? Do you have one more question?
I do have one more quick question. When you guys touched on the generic and the specific, I had 2 trips that I absolutely wanted to hold. You know, I put in my layer 1. They look, you know, fairly junior, but you never know. And so what my goal for December was to try to bid as much stuff as I know I could drop if I can hold it. So I put, I searched for all the ODANs, and when it came up, I said bid these properties in layer 1. Is that the same as putting generic and specific in the same layer? And I did actually have a problem with that. For some strange reason, it didn't actually add all of the ODANs to my pairing pool when I did that.
Did you go and look at your pairing set to be sure that it was not added?
I did. So I put the 2 specific trips in. Then I searched the ODANs, which for our base, there was only like 5 of them. So I clicked on the bid these properties. And then when I went to the layer tab, it did not put the LaGuardia ODANs on my pairing pool, in my pairing pool. So I went back and actually just added them individually, but I couldn't figure out why it did that. I only put 2 trips in that layer 1, and then I put bid these properties for the ODANs, and it didn't actually add them all.
And so you bid prefer pairing type ODANs.
Yes, and that's all I picked for that. And then when the 5 showed up, I clicked on the there's a little link on there when you search pairings, and it actually says bid these pairings. So I clicked on that little tab and it added all the Boston ODANs, but it did not add the 2 LaGuardia ones.
Interesting. So you hit, so I'm going to go and do exactly what I believe I heard you tell me you did.
Yeah.
So click the search pairings and just put in ODANs.
Search pairings, not add properties.
No, go to search pairings and then just pairing type was the ODAN.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so when you get that, you'll see there's Boston and LaGuardia.
Uh-huh. Right.
So that LaGuardia one that goes out on the 20. So see up at the very top, it says bid these properties.
Yeah, you don't do it from this. That's not how you're doing it. From what you just, it's not the process that you are doing it when you hit search more criteria. At where I am right now, you would actually hit the pairing number or the specific day and then add it to a layer.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought if you clicked bid these properties, it would add everything that's on that page.
Let's do it. I don't think so, but let's give it a shot. All right. I'm going to add it to layer 1 and let's give it a shot. I haven't done that, so you may be teaching me something at the moment. I just did it. There it is, ODANs. So view pairing set. And because of my vacation, I'm sure that's why I'm not creating all of the
But you have LaGuardia there.
I do have.
I know that's the weird thing. The LaGuardia is actually showing up on her. That was the one that actually did not show up on mine. All the Boston ones did, but the LaGuardia one did not come up.
Interesting. And the reason why the Bostons may not be showing on my screen is because of when do they go out? Are they during my VEX or during my vacation?
They're during both. They go out that whole week.
Okay, and that's why they are not populating on my screen.
Tara, do you have any planned absences or anything during that LaGuardia? Maybe that's why it's not popping up. Did you?
No, my schedule's wide open for that, and I didn't pick those as days off. I did end up going back and just, picking the actual pairing IDs.
Right.
And they did end up populating at that point in time. So, but I was just curious if you do that. So let's say you just say a search for 1 days and then say click on bid these properties. It does not add all of the 1 days? Is that the same as bidding generic and specific in the same line?
Well,
that's a good question. That's a really good question.
But that's not, well, yeah, okay, Liz, go back to your layer tab. Yeah, okay. Where do you see, okay,
well,
you see it?
Yes, I do. And the way it's
a generic
displaying as specific because it says prefer. Well, it's
generic.
Yeah,
it's
just showing as generic at this
moment.
So
that would be specific and generic mixed together.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. I know you guys typically discourage that kind of stuff, but every once in a while I've had it, come to play, and I know it's a little more of an advanced technique. I know it's for, most people you try to discourage that, but so what I was trying to do was bid the specific trips that I think I can hold and then throw in all the generic stuff that I think I can't hold, like the ODANs, the 2-day NIPDs, the things that I figured I couldn't hold, but I was going to ask for anyway, like Liz always says, and just try to get as much, because I want a low line, but I know I can't hold it. So I was trying to bid as much stuff that I could get awarded that I could possibly drop.
Right. But Tara, remember when you're doing that, okay, if you're bidding trips that you think you can hold and you're bidding trips that you really want, but you think you can't hold. Okay. So, and you're putting them all, let's say in layer 1. the system takes all those trips and throws it in a bucket, and then it just starts pulling. So there might have been something you could have held that you're not going to get because it didn't pull it.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So bid the trips that you really want, even if you think you can't hold them first, and then bid the trips that you think realistically you can hold in a separate layer. Because like I said, you might have been able to hold one of those trips that you thought you weren't going to hold because everybody was on vacation then. And you could have, but it picked the one that you really didn't want over it because it's just, they're all weighted equally in a layer and it just randomly picks.
I got what you're saying. Okay.
Plus, once again, it's like putting multiple pairings on the same day. You're also affected by somewhat of a global look into your seniority where someone might have just put a trip that you want specific by itself on that layer. It may award you one of the generic ODANs over that specific trip and awarded this other person what you really wanted first because you said they're equal. Did I confuse you?
Yeah, no, I got you. I got exactly what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so everyone just remember that everything that is in a layer, every pairing you put in a layer is all weighed by the system equally. So to put it in simple forms, it takes everything you bid in that specific layer, that let's say layer one, takes everything from layer one, puts it in a bucket, and then starts pulling. If you can hold all of it, obviously. And then it just sort of randomly pulls. So whatever you can hold, it's just random what it's going to get. So put what you really want in a separate layer.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, hon.
Okay, so do we have any questions from any of the other folks that are on the line here? You know, we're more than happy to run over a little bit. We're about 5 minutes outside of our 2-hour window, but I think we're having good dialogue here, so we can stay a few more moments and answer some more questions if there is any.
Hey, I have a question. This is Delana. I'm fairly junior. I'm actually very junior in DC. What is the best way, if possible, to hold off the 31st and the 1st? Because I'm a line holder in December, and then I'll be back on reserve in January.
Do you want to take it, Liz, or you want me to?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I mean, there's different ways you can do that. I mean, you can bid yourself again, as I think I told, maybe it was Tara I talked to earlier about that, you know, bid the 6 days before, and then you're forced to have the 31st off but the 31st, if you're that junior, the 31st might be a coverage needed date. Once again, we don't know because of the 300% what's going to happen. Or you could bid something that comes in the morning of the 31st, and maybe so there's different ways of doing it. It's just, it would be a lot easier if we knew for sure how things were going to work. But because of the 300%, which is you know, great for everyone, but it's kind of thrown a wrench in the works because now we don't know how to plan for this. So yeah, bidding yourself illegal and then just making sure you have that day off and is a good way of doing it. Other than that, like I said, you might be able to hold it off just normally with the 300%, but that's what I would do. And to back myself up, I would just bid myself illegal for that 31st to make sure I have it off. Or bid something that you know is going to drop. That's another one. Bid something that you know will drop, and then just try to put it in the ETB. But yeah, and because now people are, if the 300% is good for ETB too, so people will be reaching for TTS, ETB, however they can get the trips.
Right. 1 days, go for all the 1 days. That's something that I would recommend because they drop pretty well. If you look at my screen, I just populated trips that come in after midnight on the 29th. They come in they release on the 30th. That's something you can do as well. You could try that method. You could see this 2870. See, it comes in at lands at that lands at 1034. So I mistakenly said that. I do apologize. But get a trip that comes in, lands about 11:55. Anything that releases the next day, that's something you might be able to try. And you could do that in layer 7.
So we have about 17% of 1 days, and if I hear what she's saying, she's pretty junior, so it's hard to get the 1 days.
It is. Yeah, I know. It's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah.
But again, even at her seniority, we have no idea what's going to occur because of the.
And you're right. You're correct.
Yeah, we don't. We really don't. She may end up having that whole end of the month off.
And Liz and Beth and John, Alan even, isn't this one of the first times ever when they've done this initiative or incentive prior to PBS bidding? We've had them throw these in, mid-month or, randomly throughout the decades, but I don't recall it ever being done prior to PBS. Am I wrong?
You're correct, Di. The only other time that they've really approached the magnitude of this was December of 2015, but that was post the award that we had the issue.
Yes, down of Christmas to 2015. Yes. That time. Yes, thanks.
But that was post the award, not proactively. So we're in some uncharted territories, which I think are really exciting if you look at the negotiating committee, because they will be dealing with holiday pay. This may give them a lot of great footing to say, look, if you do this, they will, the old, what is it, Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. If you pay it, they will fly. So.
Right. It's a shame it took the extremes of what we saw during Halloween to listen and be more proactive, but hey, we'll take it, right?
I know.
Slow
Exactly.
learner, but we're getting there. Thank you.
We'll take. Thank you. That was great. So if there's no other questions, I just have a few things again to reiterate. The Miss Award process is between December 18th at noon Central Time and closes December 24th at noon Central Time. Keep in mind that this current PBS will close on Monday, the November 15th at noon Central Time. So you don't want to miss the window of placing your bids. I also wanted to let you know that we will have 10 new hires that will be joining our ranks. They will be having in-docs later on in November, and they will be available for flying in December. And just keep in mind that they are not in the numbers. So they're just going to be an additional 10 people that will be available. So I just wanted to let you know that as well. And this is not PBS related, but the third quarter WBT is also due on Monday, November the 15th by 23:59. So we want to make sure that we get that done, and that's under the training tools under JetNet or on JetNet. And then finally, if you have any questions that you think about after we go ahead and get off of this call, you can email them to me at jpennell@apfa.org or dbritton@apfa.org, and we will get these over to Liz and Beth, and we can get you an answer. So basically, we're pretty much at the end of our event today. I wanted to thank everybody. Thank you, Liz and Beth, for your wonderful knowledge. Alan, for joining today. If we didn't mention this before, Alan Boswell is our regional rep for Philadelphia and DC. He handles most of our grievances after they're filed at the base level. if we don't win them at the base level, once they go through myself, then they go over to Alan, and then he does his magic. So we're very happy to have Alan here. And also Alan Boswell was part of our negotiation committee and our JSIC, who implemented a lot of this language. He worked very hard during that time. So we're very happy to have him and his knowledge on our call today. So if there's anything else, go ahead and speak now. If not, we'll just go ahead and go, and we'll try to offer these sessions maybe early spring. Depends on, the feedback and what people are looking for.
Thank you. That's all I have to say. I learned so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Tara.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice weekend.
Thank
too.
you.
Take care. Happy holidays.
Okay, happy holidays. We'll talk to everybody soon. Have a great week, great weekend, and next week as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.